Democrats plan to use identity politics in an attempt to take back the White House in 2020. President Trump as well, being President Trump again. Newly elected Congressman Dan Crenshaw completely owns the mainstream media. And lastly, protesters in Tijuana, Mexico are increasingly upset due to the influx of migrants from the caravan staying in their cities. This is A Better World, and I'm your host, Luis Acevedo. Starting off today, we're going to talk about the Democrats and their new strategy to take back the White House in 2020. They are going to be using identity politics like nobody's business. This is their plan, and it is going to completely backfire on them. I am surprised that their advisors are even allowing them to do this. I say this because President Trump has done more than any other president has to create better opportunities for the African American community and the Hispanic community. I mean, we have the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans right now and the lowest unemployment rate for Hispanics right now as well. These are two incredible things that are happening under this so-called racist president. If he was really that racist, wouldn't you think that he would disproportionately try to oust them and make sure that they didn't have these opportunities to have a better life? It would only make sense he would do that. So, Democrats want to run on identity politics and use race as their main tool to win back the White House. This is not going to work for them. First off, for whatever reason, people have forgotten that the KKK, slavery, Jim Crow laws were all created by the Democratic Party. They were. People forget as well that FDR was the president who had the military come to Asian Americans' houses and remove them from their houses, law-abiding citizens, Asian Americans, and put them in internment camps, all because of their race. We'll forget about that. We'll forget about LBJ calling the Civil Rights Act of 1965 the N-word bill. We'll forget about LBJ talking on Air Force One with a governor stating that once they pass the Civil Rights Bill, N-words will be voting Democratic for 100 years. We'll forget about all that. These were the Democrats who said that, not Republicans. For whatever reason, we seem to have forgotten that. Secondly, the Democrats' front runner right now, Joe Biden, was the one who looked at an African-American crowd and told them to their faces that they're going to be put back in chains when he was talking about Mitt Romney. This is the party who wants to run on identity politics. This is not going to work. On top of that, President Trump even has more ammunition with his endorsement of the criminal reform bill, which will completely, not completely, but sort of rescind what President Bill Clinton did, which disproportionately hurt African American people. So President Trump has done a lot more for the minorities than the Democrats have. There's also another fun fact here, maybe not so much fun, but interesting fact, that most of the cities that are impoverished and have the highest crime rates are run by Democrats. Surprise, surprise. Yep. The reason that is because of high taxes, rent control, keeping businesses out of there, etc., etc., etc. Yet they think that this is their golden ticket. It is going to completely backfire on them, and I cannot wait to see how they completely lose their minds once President Trump gets reelected in 2020. Because if this is going to be their platform to run on, it is game over. It truly is. It is going to be awesome to watch that happen. Now, in other news, we're going to talk about President Trump here. He had an interview on Fox News on Sunday where he actually said some things he shouldn't have, but what's new there, right? He was talking about a Navy SEAL who contributed to the death of Osama bin Laden. He criticized him for the Navy SEAL criticizing President Trump. And I'll go ahead and play some of that clip of what President Trump had to say during this interview.
No. Can I just bring the bigger... 94%. Can I bring the bigger issue up?
Yeah.
Bill McRaven, retired admiral, Navy SEAL, 37 years, former head of U.S. Special Operations.
Hillary Clinton fan.
special operations.
Excuse me, Hillary Clinton fan.
Who led the operations, commanded the operations that took down Saddam Hussein and that killed Osama bin Laden, says that your sentiment is the greatest threat to democracy in his lifetime.
He's a Hillary Clinton backer and an Obama backer. And frankly,
he's a Navy SEAL.
Wouldn't it have been nice if we got Osama bin Laden a lot sooner than that? Wouldn't it have been nice? You know, think of this. Living in Pakistan, beautifully in Pakistan, in what I guess they considered a nice mansion. I don't know, I've seen nicer. But living in Pakistan, right next to the military academy, everybody in Pakistan knew he was there. And we give Pakistan $1.3 billion a year. And they don't tell him. They don't tell him.
You're not even going to give them credit for taking down bin Laden?
They took him down, but look. There's news right there. He lived in Pakistan. We're supporting Pakistan. We're giving them $1.3 billion a year, which we don't give them anymore, by the way. I ended it because they don't do anything for us. They don't do a damn thing for us.
The only thing he said that was correct there was his whole spiel on Pakistan. As far as what he said regarding the Navy SEAL, I think that was very unpresidential of him. There was also information provided by Jake Tapper on Twitter that this Navy SEAL stated that he's a backer of all people in office, who's the president, as everybody should be, and, didn't really understand President Trump's attack on him. Now, in my opinion, the way President Trump probably should have handled this situation is to say something along the lines of, I respect his opinion. I'm thankful for what he's done. He has definitely helped our country and helped protect the world when it comes to taking out Osama bin Laden. He has done our country a huge service. I'm sorry that he feels that way about me, but I'm working to do what I can to further strengthen the military. I have done more for veterans than a lot of presidents have. I have revitalized a lot of the things in the military. That would have been something a lot better for President Trump to say as opposed to attacking a former Navy SEAL. That is not something I believe a commander-in-chief should do. So I think this was a bad move on President Trump's part. People may agree or disagree with me. That's okay. I think that it's clear as day that he shouldn't have said that, especially as the President of the United States. That is somebody who has defended our country. We should definitely respect their opinion. And everybody has a right to it. And to just go ahead and say that he was a Hillary Clinton backer and a Barack Obama backer is a weak argument. It truly is. I understand where he's going at with it, but it's a weak argument and it shouldn't have been said. But that's President Trump for you. He's always ready to go on the attack, which, like I said earlier, is a good thing, but it can be a bad thing as well. And this is one of the instances where it is a bad thing when he goes on the attack. I don't see this hurting him too much, being that the news cycle feels as if there's a 10 years worth of information coming out every second now. So this probably won't hinder him too poorly, but it definitely doesn't look good. It definitely doesn't make him look good. So, but switching over to something else, a veteran, for Dan Crenshaw, he's newly elected congressman for Texas, actually had an interview with Face the Nation on CBSN where he completely called out the left on their hypocrisy when it comes to talking about President Trump undermining democracy and asking them for examples, and he rightfully calls them out on their BS. And we'll go ahead and play this for you guys real quick here. Let me go ahead and rewind. This is once again off of Twitter, and this is from the account of Face the Nation. And the first person speaking in this video is Representative newly elect Nagais, I believe his name is. Sorry if I'm butchering that. All right, we'll go ahead and get this started.
That I think some of our democratic freedoms and the principles that we live by have been under attack for the better part of the last 2 years.
Congressman-elect, do you want to respond to that since the president is the leader of your party?
Yeah. Well, I always ask the question, like what? What is he undermining exactly? What democratic freedoms have been undermined? We just had an election where we switched power in the House. Democracy is at work. People are voting and
Facts, Yet they keep claiming that democracy is being undermined. They claim the elections were not fair. They claim Republicans were suppressing voters. But as soon as Republicans go ahead and say that there's voter fraud taking place, the whole left and the whole mainstream media calls them out on lies, which there's evidence that voter fraud does happen. But I'll let Congressman Dan Crenshaw continue to own them.
We're in record numbers. I always ask for examples, and then we can hit those examples one by one. And if it's worth criticizing, it's worth criticizing. But just kind of this broad brush criticism that the president is somehow undermining our democracy, I always wonder what exactly we're talking
I'll
about.
be happy to add all of the things.
I'm happy to give you the undermining of the
The
freedom
free
of
press,
right.
judiciary, CIA,
How is it
FBI, the voting process.
So Obama indicted, had many press members under investigation. Trump is not.
It's true.
Boom! Boom! That is 100% factual. Barack Obama did that. Also, let's completely forget about the fact that President Obama completely weaponized the IRS to target conservative nonprofit organizations. He targeted them. He actually, in Wisconsin, police invaded several predominant donors of a conservative nonprofit PAC and raided their houses, put floodlights right through their windows, and just bombarded their houses, took all their paperwork and jailed them without telling them why, and didn't read them their rights or anything like that, and they were eventually let go. This was under President Obama. So let's just keep blaming President Trump for undermining democracy and completely forget about what the left has done to truly undermine democracy.
So what is the difference
This
here?
last week, one of the largest media publications in the United States, right, had to go to a federal court in order to essentially regain access
That was
to
for
the
one
press
reporter. One reporter. Not the whole
Organizations,
organization.
including CBS, did file amicus
That's
briefs
right.
in support.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I think
was just
obviously
one reporter.
it's part of much larger
Because he was
conversation,
disruptive.
but, well, again,
I would argue
federal
that our
judge
president is
disagree.
consistently disruptive in those very same press conferences, and I would argue that he
How
should
is that
step
an
with
attack on the
disrespect.
press, though?
Because it's literally an attack.
Oh,
on the
I've
press.
literally been attacked, so let's choose our words carefully.
His language is an attack.
Okay, so why can't he speak? Why is he not allowed to use his own language and freedom of speech?
Because, and you talked about this actually, it's important that we lead from example, that we lead from the top. And the way that our president is
I agree with you there. I agree with you there. Style is one thing. If you want to criticize style, I'm with you, right? But to say it's an attack on the freedom of the press, that is a very bold statement.
Thank God we have him in Congress, and thank God we have people like him in Congress to call out the hypocrisy that is going on the left. I want to add that he would not have been given this opportunity had it not been for I believe his name is Peter Davis, who is on CNN, SNL, who made a very bad joke about him and his missing eye. He wouldn't be on there if he wasn't a veteran and if SNL hadn't made fun of him for having only one eye. Guarantee he wouldn't have this opportunity otherwise. It is very nice and refreshing to see that the left was put on the spot with their overbroad statements and generalizing everything President Trump does and trying to narrow down on one thing. When they were talking about the attacks on the free press, he hit it right on the nail when he said that, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Attacks on the press? That isn't taking place. He banned one. He didn't even ban him. He just revoked the hard pass of one reporter, not the whole news organization. CNN could have brought in somebody else. Also, Jim Acosta could have went back into the press corps had he have gotten a White House daily pass. He wasn't barred from the White House. And to say that that was undermining the First Amendment is a lie and a fabrication. He calls out Barack Obama there. He then states that, we need to be very careful on the bold statements of saying there's an attack on the freedom of speech, because that's 100% true. You can't just claim that there's an attack on the freedom of speech, the First Amendment right, when there is no actual evidence that President Trump is actively banning people from speaking in the White House or trying to suppress certain platforms from doing their job. The only people who have done that is the left, by banning Alex Jones, by shadow banning several conservatives and several libertarians on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube as well, and demonetizing a lot of conservatives on YouTube. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This is 100% legitimate. You can see conservatives and libertarians losing subscribers, although on their actual reports it's showing that they're gaining subscribers. However, YouTube is somehow making it look as if they have less subscribers than what they actually do. The left is actively attacking media. They've banned Alex Jones, and they've started doing several other things. Google has started saying that they're going to do a censor. They're going to censor searches so that way they can appease certain investors and certain forms of government. So the left is the one that is actively attacking the First Amendment and coming after the Second Amendment. Once again, we'll forget about all the bad things the left does and blame it wholeheartedly on the right. That is the common move they do, is continuous deflect. Now, in other news where the left once again wants to demonize President Trump for his statements on the caravan, calling them an invasion, and Jim Acosta called President Trump out on this, and this is not the reason why he had his hard pass revoked, but because of the way he acted, which was completely disrespectful. Anyway, he called out President Trump on this in particular, saying that, oh, they're peaceful, they're not going to be hopping over fences, which there's plenty of videos to see that they actually did climb the fence. As soon as they get to our border, they started climbing the fence. There's also evidence and proof that they forced their way through the Mexican border, which completely upset a lot of Mexicans, as we see now in Tijuana. The mayor has even called the influx of migrants, and I quote, an avalanche that could wind up staying in the city for at least 6 months. And this is an article from NBC News. And President Trump tweeted out this yesterday at 1:42. It states, the mayor of Tijuana, Mexico, just stated the city is ill-prepared to handle this many migrants. The backlog could last 6 months. Likewise, the U.S. is ill-prepared for this invasion and will not stand for it. They are causing crime and big problems in Mexico. Go home. That's what they state. And also, there is plenty of Mexicans over there, too, that are telling them that they want the migrants to go home. There's one in particular, a resident of Tijuana, Roy Grant, who states the following: I think these migrants need to go back to their country. Mexico needs to take an aggressive, hands-on approach and deport them. And he actually didn't agree with a lot of what President Trump has said in the past about immigration laws and things of that nature. And there's also another person, Francis Belmontos, who stated the following. This is actually a statement within the article. It says, Francis Belmontos, who brought his 2 children to protest, said his 7-year-old daughter told him that some of the migrants were urinating outside of her school and asking for money. He said not all migrants were mothers seeking a better life for their children, and he had seen some young men with tattoos who he believed were gang members. He said he worried for his children's safety. He quotes, it's chaos. We're sounding like Trump's America here in Mexico. And once again, he also didn't agree with what President Trump was saying at the beginning until these migrants enter the city. There's also evidence all over Twitter and pictures all over Twitter of these migrants completely decimating towns in which they're in. They stay in these little outdoor areas and completely trash them. Not saying all of them are bad people, because they're not. There are actually some mothers and children and families who are seeking better lives, not economically, but actually fleeing from danger. As for those who are seeking a better life economically, they don't qualify for asylum. Poverty does not fall under the asylum-seeking requirements. So there's a lot of men, actually, predominant, I think a large percentage within the caravan are actually men looking for better work, not safety. They're just looking for better work. So we'll see how this unfolds as it continues. But as we can see, there is a lot of outrage going on in Mexico right now for the migrants coming into their country and completely disregarding their laws. That's essentially what's happening there. So, we're just going to keep hearing that the right is the one to blame. President Trump is a racist, an Islamophobe, a xenophobe, etc., etc., etc. And we'll keep ignoring the facts. That's a beautiful way to live our lives, is just blinded, and we'll just follow the left and whatever they say. So that's the news for today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you all have a wonderful Monday, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Peace.